my name is Sarah and welcome to today's video. So since it is the beginning of March, I need to do a little reset of my life and get everything together. So today I'm going to be updating my reading journal and my regular bullet journal, and then updating my calendars and doing a bit of a cleaning reset for my room. I just came back from a weekend trip with my sorority to the mountains, so the room is an absolute mess because I drove my car, which meant I had to take all the junk that was in my car out, and now it's in my room. So I think we're gonna find a place for everything, clean up a little bit, and then get into some journaling. I know in the last video I mentioned my reading journal and I showed a little bit of it, but today I wanted to kind of take you through a tour of my reading journal and go through last year's and also set up some of the pages for this year. So to start off, I always try to make a cover page. This was last year's. It was really simple. I was really nervous about it because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to crafts and stuff. And then after that, I kind of set up my goals and a rating system. This helps me to stay on track with my reading and make sure that I'm being productive in what I'm reading and when I'm reading, and putting all of my thoughts together after I read a book. So now I have my daily reading tracker and then my overall books tracker. So here's where I log the amount of pages I read every day. In my bullet journal, I put the actual number of pages every single day for the month, but in here I just colored based on how many pages I read. There are a lot of blank pages, as you can see. This is because I stopped doing it halfway through the year and I don't remember how many pages I read at all. I do still have the number of books I finished, so when I finish a book I write that number on that day. And so I still have them for the blank pages because I do remember when I finished the books, but I don't remember how many pages I read leading up to it because I stopped tracking. And then for the book tracker, this is just for every book I read what my rating was, so I can kind of see in a colorful way how my reading went as far as ratings. I also meant to skip this book. It was a devotional, so I didn't want to rate it, even though I still would have given it like 5 stars, so I could have rated it, but that threw off the book numbers. So this is a little inaccurate, but I know what books I was talking about and that's all that matters. It's really frustrating for me to see these 4 empty ones at the bottom because I didn't get to them, but there's always this year and we'll get it this time. So after I made those, I wanted to make a bookshelf to actually see the books I read, and I thought it would be kind of cute. So I drew that up, and then I would color the books based on what the cover looks like and the color of the covers. This is one of my more favorite things to update every month and to see how my bookshelf would come out. I also saw somebody do a 24 books in 2024, and so these were the books I wanted to read last year. A couple of them I did read. Most of them, if I didn't read them, I own them, and there are only a couple more that I want that I don't have. But a couple of these have made a comeback for this year's page, and so I'm hoping to finish those. But for the most part, all of the books on this list that I read were 5 stars. There were only 2 that were 4 stars, and I still really enjoyed those. So, it's a pretty good list in my opinion. I had a little extra space and just kind of wanted to figure out how I like to journal. I've only ever journaled in like a calendar kind of way, never with like scrapbook paper and using stickers and stuff like that. I've always been someone to save my stickers until I really needed them, but I've never really needed them. So I'm working on using the things I have while I have them, because if I don't, I'm just gonna save them up and never use them. So that was kind of what this page was. I think I saw it on Pinterest as far as like the quote and how it was written, and I just copied that. And then I took a bunch of the different papers I got in a scrapbook kit my mom got me for Christmas and just put them everywhere. So I really like this page. I think it's cute and it's a fun little break in all of the tracking stuff for me to just look at something pretty and nice. So one of the biggest reasons I wanted to make this channel is because I love watching booktubers have challenge videos like 24-hour readathon, or let my favorite booktubers pick what I read, or read until I find a 5-star, or just something to kind of drive my reading. So I really wanted to try that, and I think that'll help me read more books and stay on my phone less. So I tried to kind of do that on my own with book bingo, and so I have a bunch of different prompts here that I tried to highlight for the books I read. Some of them do overlap. Like, I'm sure there's a book I read that had a certain amount of pages, was a mystery, like had a person on the cover, things like that, but I limited myself to only using one of these per book. That's why there are a couple that I didn't get to, but I did get bingo a good many times, so I was proud of that, and I really enjoyed filling this out. And I tried to buy books according to what I was missing on here, even if I didn't actually get around to reading those. But I did that again for this journal, and I think it's really fun. It's really cool. So staying on the challenges kind of side of things, I also did an alphabet challenge. I didn't really buy my books or base what I was reading on this. It was just cool to see the different kind of books I read as far as the titles. I noticed a lot of them start with "the," which is just kind of obvious. So I wouldn't let myself use a title that had "the" at the beginning. A lot of the books I read start with "the." But I'm trying to get these more odd letters down, like W, X, and Z this year. So I'm going to focus more on reading for the challenges too, and hopefully I can fill that out and finish it. This is one of my favorite pages to fill out each month. It's my book of the year bracket. So every month I would put my favorite book of the month. As the months went on, I would narrow it down to just a few more books until I got to my top 3, and then I picked my favorite of the year, which was the 7-Year Slip. I have not printed out a picture to go on here yet, but I do want to do that eventually and finish filling this journal out. So once I do that, I'll have a picture of that there, and it'll be my full book bracket. These were 2 pages I just added at the beginning of this year because I had some extra space in between my monthly recaps and my like challenges and overview things, so I just included these. I haven't filled them out yet, but I do want to go through and add them because I know what's supposed to be on the page. I just haven't had time to print out the pictures and actually put them on here. So first is my 5-star reads from last year. I think I had 16 5-star reads or 11. I don't really remember. I had a good bit, and so I'm trying to figure out if I want to do bigger pictures and just overlap them all, or do I want to make them smaller and like right under each of them. But I will update y'all on this list. I did post all of my 5-star reads on my Bookstagram in my 2024 reading wrap up, so if you're curious to see what those reads were, you can go look at them there. And the next one was a series tracker. I'm really bad about starting a series and then I'll read a bunch of books in between and then maybe hit the second one, but I don't like to read a series back to back to back because I feel like I get kind of bored with the world, or it's just I need something to remind me why I enjoyed this book so much, and so I kind of need like a buffer in between the books. So whenever I started reading this year, I finished up the Natural series and I read 3 of the books in a row, and it was really difficult for me, but I did kind of like that. So I'm trying to decide if I just want to start reading my series all at once and get them out of the way, or should I keep taking breaks in between, but maybe not such long breaks that I forget what happens in the first book. But the series that I have left to read, so I did finish the Naturals. I need to update that and give it my rating. I would give the Naturals a 5 out of 5 star. It was so good. Letters of Enchantment, that's Divine Rivals, and Ruthless Vows. I read Divine Rivals last January, so it's been a while. I do still remember the book, and I remember really loving it, but it isn't an easy read. And for me, it took a lot of effort to focus on the writing because the writing is just, the writing is like beautiful, but it's not an easy, quick read, and that's something I tend to go for. So I need to find time where I want to read something like that, which doesn't typically happen. So I might just have to kind of force myself to do it. But that is on the list for this year to read. I finished Koval, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved that series. It was so magical and so fun, and I want to read something else like that. Next is The Housemaid. I read just the first one. I own the second book, but I loaned it to a friend, and I need the one that comes after The Housemaid's Secret. I loved The Housemaid, and so I'm really interested to see what follows that book and finish that series. Next is Powerless. I read the first 2 books of Powerless, or I read Powerless and Powerful. Powerful made me sob. I loved it so much, and so I want to finish it with Reckless. My friend finished it, and she really loved it, so I might borrow that from her. We'll see. And then finally, Ruinous Love. I think I'm going to DNF it. I mentioned in the video before, Leather and Luck was my least favorite book of the year so far that I've read, and I don't see myself wanting to read Scythe and Sparrow, let alone spend my money buying it. So this might be my first DNF of the year, which is exciting because I haven't DNF'd before. But we'll see. I'll keep y'all updated. Okay, so this takes me to my monthly recap. I will say these pages are really ugly because I didn't finish them, so please don't judge me. But every month I wanted to highlight the days that I read and what books I read, and so whatever color I put on here kind of matched with the cover of the book I was reading, and I wrote the review in that same color, and so my stars matched the days of reading. This just kind of helped me visualize how long I was reading books each month. This was great in theory, however, this page was completely blank and I just never got around to filling it out. But I did do October's. For some reason that's the only one I finished, and I think it looks pretty good. So this was kind of the idea. So I have my month reading. This was a very slow month for me, so that's why this looks so empty. And then I have my stats for what I read that month. So how many books, how many physical, audio, were they 5 stars, average rating, that kind of thing. And then up here I wrote the total pages. I have a picture of both the books, and then the genres. I'm trying to expand my genres a little more, so that's why I included that. And then I have a quote from each of the books that I kind of really liked. So, funny enough, Butcher and Blackbird is on this month's, but I also have this sheet of like little quotes or like little random phrases that I got that are stickers, and I tried to find some that kind of match the book. And so if you can see, for Butcher and Blackbird, it says, maybe we ought to try. And then Under the Whispering Door was mementos of lives lived. I thought that one was very fitting for the book. I really enjoyed that book. But I also wrote quotes from the books. I have a big habit of when I'm talking to somebody about a book or when I'm thinking back on a book, I have no clue what happened unless I'm actually flipping through and reminding myself. So I thought these review pages would help me to quickly remember what happened in a book, what I thought about it, why I liked it or didn't like it. So I made this a couple years ago on my iPad, but I started printing them out and putting them on here. That way I can see it and like physically write out my reviews and have it all in one place. So these reviews included information about the book, title, author, genre, how I read it, how many pages, favorite chapter, favorite character, date started, finished, that kind of thing. And then I also included a spot for the quotes that I liked from the book, all of the characters in the book, or a good bit of the characters, and then just my overall thoughts about it. I tried to make it with no spoilers because I did post some of these on my book page and I didn't want to spoil the book for anybody. And I did the same with the plot overview. So this is just kind of, for me, how exciting I guess it was, or action-packed, or the pacing. And I included little marks of like what was going on at that point without giving it away. So these are my book review pages. I did a pretty good job of these at the beginning of the year. As time went on, I stopped keeping track of it because the plots took a lot of time, because I didn't do it as I was reading through the book because I didn't know, like, compared to the rest of the book, is this a really high point or is this like a low point? So I didn't want to do that as I was reading because I thought my opinions of the plot would change. So after I would read a book, I'd have to go all the way back through the book and remind myself of each of the plot points. It just took a lot of time that I did not end up having during the school year. So for the most part, February and January were really good as far as keeping up with this. And then I just kind of gave up on the plot. I just let myself stick with like the main parts, so like information about the book and then quotes, characters, and my thoughts. And then I just stopped altogether. And I wrote out what the books were that I read that should be on that page, but I didn't fill it out. So overall, I think I did a really good job with the reading journal for the first year ever doing it. My goal this year with my reading journal is to stay consistent, and even if the pages aren't super pretty and they're not perfect, fill it out and at least put the information down so I don't lose it and don't forget it, and I don't move on so fast that I never go back to it, because there are a lot of pages in this journal that I don't think I'll get back to, and seeing empty pages in my journal makes me kind of sad. So my goal this year is to just, at the end of every month, fill out about what happened that month, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not a lot, just do it so I can have it done. So now this takes me to this year's journal. I'm not going to go through every page and describe everything because the setup is the exact same as last year's, but I do want to show you all the pages that I've done so far, and so I'll put those here and you can look through them without listening to me talk and talk and talk. So. One thing that I didn't include in the video of my journal are my new rating pages. So I tweaked the format of these pages just a little bit because the plot overview just took too much time. I was not enjoying it, and when I went back through my reviews, it didn't help me to remember what was happening enough. So I took that out, and then I also took out the characters just because if a book is really memorable to me, I'm going to remember the characters, and that's an easy thing to look up if I forget it. I can just look up characters of this book rather than spending time writing it and taking up space. So I've changed up my thing just a little bit. I took those two things out. That way I can include more ratings on one page, because this last part of my book, I don't have as many pages open. So these are all the pages I have left for this journal, where for last year I had all these pages because I was doing 1 page per review. So with this setup, I can now do 2 reviews per page, and that'll just help me to see more books on 1 page and kind of compare them a little more. So that's why I set it up like that. And that's the only real difference in my journal for this year and last year. But yeah, so that is my physical reading journal. So the goal for today, even though I just spent 30 minutes talking, the goal for today is to update these journals and calendars and get my life together. So let's go. Okay, so I know it may not look clean, but as far as getting everything out of the way that I didn't need in the moment. I did that. I put up all the clothes that were out except for the stack that I need to put in my bench, but I have to move the stuff on my bench, but I need to figure out where to move it first because it's all craft stuff. So I did want to talk to you, so I did want to show you all the craft stuff I have. So I have this box right here that my best friend gave me when she asked me to be her maid of honor, and so inside of it I keep a bunch of craft things that I don't typically need right away, or they're more like backup supplies and refills of things. And then I have this clear box that has some of the stuff that I use a little more often, but it's too big for my container that I have, so I keep it in there because it's easy to carry around with me. And then I have this box of markers that I got for Christmas one year, and I love them. The only issue is they bleed through like crazy, so I have to be careful when I use them, but the colors are really bright. They don't streak over, like if you draw over it twice it's very smooth, so I love using those for my journal to make everything look nice and put together. And then I have my blue box, and this is my prized possession. I take it with me everywhere. It has all of my tape, my glue, my stickers, my paper, my pens, everything that I use to craft typically is in this box. So I take pretty much the brown chest, my pack of pens, my clear box, and my blue box with me everywhere that I plan to journal. So I want to get them set up in my room so I can easily use them rather than putting them back in the box I've been using to carry them in, because I want to use them more often, and if they're out and ready, I'm more likely to update my journal because I don't have to struggle to get them out and in. So let's do that now. Okay, now that I have everything rearranged and organized, it's time to work on my journal. So my phone did unfortunately kick the bucket while I was recording me working on my journal, but I wanted to update you on the pages that I finished so you could see the progress I made today. So I started off updating my daily reading page tracker. As you can see, I have the days at the beginning of the month that I did track, but there are a lot of blank pages because I know there are a couple of days in here where I read like 10 to 15 pages, but I don't remember what those days were. So I'm going to look back at my calendar and see what I was doing and see if I can figure out what those days were before I've colored them all gray. And I did include that I finished the second book on the last day of the month. Then I updated my book tracker and included my 2 4.5-star ratings for those books and filled them in on my bookshelf. I'm still debating whether or not I want to add color on these like I did for last year's and include the color of the cover as the spine, or if I want to leave them blank and keep this kind of like a plain, clean look. I think I might wait until I have more books filled out to decide what I want to do with that, but let me know if you have opinions on that. And then I moved on to the books I read this year, or books I want to read this year. I did have The House Across the Lake as one on my list, so I wrote the stars and then included the date I finished it so I can look back and see that I did at least read something on my list. And then I moved on to my 2 little like challenges. And so I wrote every last word down for E on the alphabet challenge. I already have a spot in T, and I don't want to use a title that says the in the word on this challenge because that feels like a cheat to me. And then for bingo, I wrote recommended by a friend for The House Across the Lake. For some reason only did 4 rows and columns for my bingo instead of 5. I guess I forgot how bingo is spelled or how many letters are in bingo. But that's okay. We're just gonna fill it out and move on. And so this was the January spread for my monthly review, and I did not have time to print out the pictures of my books before I started working on the journal, so I left this a little blank for February. I did fill out the calendar for what I read this month and included the ratings and the title, and I planned out what I want to put on this blank page with the page numbers and the stats about the books I read this month, and then the quotes and the covers, and I kind of planned where I want to put it. So once I have time to go print out pages, I think I'm going to do that tomorrow while I'm on campus. I can come back and finish the book, or finish my spread and include that. I'll show a little clip of that too once it's done. And then the last thing I did was fill out my ratings for both of the books I read. Like I said, I didn't have time to print the cover, so this is blank. And the only other thing blank is the length of the books and then my favorite chapters, because I don't remember what the actual chapter numbers or titles are because my books are not with me anymore. But once I go home and find the links in those chapters, I'll fill that in. But I filled everything else in about my thoughts and some quotes and then the ratings, and got all of that down. So that's all I did so far for February. Hopefully I will fill more stuff in March so I can keep doing this consistently and it won't all build up until the end of the month. But yeah. Again, everybody, thank you for following along with me today as I try to get myself ready for a new month and get everything organized and prepared to have a good reading month, a good academic month, and just stay put together. Fingers crossed. Hopefully I will keep up with doing these journal updates every month. That way I can show y'all how my reading and journaling process is going, and it'll help me to actually commit to filling it out and doing it. So thank you for following along today. Let me know if you have any other video ideas or things you want to hear me talk about or challenges to do. Like I said, I love a good challenge, so please let me know if there are any that you have done that you found are fun or that helped you read more or that you would like to see me do. But other than that, I will see you somewhere else later. Bye.